So, what happens when a single comment from a former US president sets off an absolute firestorm with one of its closest allies? Well, today we're breaking down exactly that, why the UK's response to Donald Trump was so fast, so furious, and what it all tells us about the current state of the NATO alliance.
And right here, this is the quote that basically lit the fuse. Kemi Badenoch's choice of words, flat-out nonsense, wasn't just a simple disagreement. No, this was a complete, forceful rejection. It was a clear signal that what was coming wasn't going to be some polite diplomatic correction, but a full-throated defense of the UK's entire military record.
Okay, so how do you even begin to push back against a claim that big from a voice that loud? Well, first, let's look at the official response, where the UK used cold, hard facts to set the record straight.
So let's be crystal clear on the accusation itself, that British troops and other allies were kind of hanging back in Afghanistan, staying off the front lines. Now, for anyone who actually followed that war, or worse, served in it, this claim wasn't just wrong. It was a gut punch, a real insult.
And the response from the Prime Minister's office? Wow, it was immediate and it was blunt. They didn't dance around it. By just coming out and saying he was wrong, they left zero room for argument. This was their way of saying, this isn't about politics, this is about defending the honor of our people in uniform.
Now, to really understand why this hit such a nerve in the UK, you have to get to the very heart of the NATO alliance itself, Article 5. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful promise. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. I mean, that's the whole foundation of their collective security.
And here is the absolute crucial piece of the puzzle. In its entire 70-plus-year history, Article 5 has been triggered just once, one time. And when was that? It was to defend the United States after the 9/11 attacks. So British troops weren't just in Afghanistan as helpful partners. They were there because they were honoring the most sacred pact in the entire alliance, for America.
But, this rebuttal goes so much deeper than politics or treaties. For the UK, the commitment to Afghanistan came at an unbelievable human cost, one that isn't measured in money, but in lives.
457. This is what's at the very heart of the UK's anger. It represents every single British son, daughter, father, and mother who never came home from Afghanistan. Each one of those lives is a direct, tragic contradiction to the idea that they weren't on the front line.
This quote from the Defense Secretary really gets to the core of it. For so many people in Britain, this wasn't about correcting a simple factual error. It was about defending the memory, the legacy of people who were hailed as heroes and who literally gave everything they had.
And beyond the politicians, maybe the most powerful responses came from the people who were actually there. Let's hear from the veterans who brought this whole debate down from the political clouds to the harsh reality of their service on the ground.
This is from a defense minister, Al Carnes, who himself served 5 tours in Afghanistan. That phrase, bonds forged in fire, it just paints such a powerful picture, doesn't it? This wasn't about one ally holding back. This was about partners fighting, bleeding, and sacrificing together, always side by side.
Now, here's another veteran, Calvin Bailey, and he points to a totally different, maybe even bigger kind of danger. He's arguing that the real damage here isn't to a soldier's pride. He says that's tough. The real damage is to the alliance itself. He thinks comments like these don't just insult your friends, they actually encourage your enemies by weakening NATO from the inside out.
So let's zoom out. What's the bigger picture here? Because comments like these, they don't just appear out of nowhere. They tap into a really long-running and often pretty tense debate inside NATO about who's paying their fair share.
Right, so from the former president's perspective, this isn't really just about Afghanistan. It's part of his much broader argument that he's been making for years, that a lot of NATO allies aren't spending enough on their own defense, which he says leaves the US carrying an unfair weight. So in that context, you can see these comments as kind of a blunt instrument to try and force allies to open up their wallets.
But here's a totally different take. The former UK ambassador to Afghanistan, Sir Nicholas Kay, he offers a much starker view. He suggests the problem isn't really just about spending targets. He thinks it's a fundamental failure to even appreciate what the alliance is for, a partnership that, as we've seen, was literally built on shared sacrifice.
And that, really, is the huge question that this whole firestorm has left hanging in the air, not just for the UK and the US, but for the entire Western alliance. A promise of mutual defense is one thing, but what happens to that promise when the mutual respect starts to fall apart? That's the real issue here. Thanks for joining us.